Undoubtedly, gaining independence and autonomy is a significant step in every person's life. However, there is a risk of falling under the control of a ruthless individual who will pursue you until your last breath. On Friday, June 19, 2020, a group of young people went for a walk in Seattle, located in Washington State, United States of America. They chose an extremely popular spot near the coastline, rocky outcrop stretching along the waters of Puget Sound. This location at Alki Beach was very popular among tourists and city residents. The youth were having fun and planning to create video content for the social media platform TikTok, carefully examining the surrounding area in search of a good subject for filming. Suddenly, their attention was caught by an unusual object, a massive black suitcase left on the rocky surface. The young people were excited about the opportunity to stumble upon something unusual and decided to film a potentially viral video with their find. Making their way across the rocky terrain to the suitcase, they attempted to reveal its contents. From the very beginning, the young people noticed an intense foul odor, but couldn't understand its origin. The suitcase turned out to be extremely heavy and packed to the brim. The youth intended to open it and find out what was inside, but as soon as the zipper began to move, the disgusting smell intensified so much that they decided to refrain from direct contact with their hands. The process was continuously recorded on camera. The youth used long objects, trying to poke through the contents of the suitcase until they finally managed to tip it over. What was inside spilled onto the rocky surface. Everything was wrapped in dark plastic bags. The foul smell became absolutely unbearable. From one package, a human limb, an arm, was visible. The young people screamed in horror, stopped what they were doing, and immediately notified law enforcement. From the start, there were obstacles in getting police involved in the case. The report came to the police station at 2:11 p.m., but officers arrived at the scene only after a 2-hour wait. The delay was caused by a shortage of police personnel due to significant civil unrest occurring in the city. During this time, the tide began to come in, and initial attempts to find the suitcase were unsuccessful. There was even speculation about it possibly being washed away by ocean waves, but after expanding the search perimeter from the initial location, they managed to find the suitcase. Coast Guard representatives were then called in. While waiting for additional units, another suitcase was found about 50 meters from the first discovery. Since this was an extremely popular tourist trail for hiking, and the youth were the first to come across the suitcase, it most likely appeared there recently. Inside were indeed human remains, and not just one body, but 2 people. Initially, police officers didn't pay proper attention to the fact that the young people had filmed their discovery. However, they immediately posted the video online. The recording successfully passed moderation and became available to the general public 24 hours later. The day after the bodies were discovered, the police department received information that this video had been posted on TikTok, where it was rapidly gaining popularity, reaching approximately 30 million views. This situation could have caused excessive public interest in the find and created obstacles for law enforcement work, but it also had a positive aspect. It allowed confirmation of the youth's truthful testimony without needing to obtain a warrant to check their mobile devices. However, at that time, this didn't help establish the identities of the victims found. The video was later removed from the platform out of respect for the deceased and their families. By that time, Seattle law enforcement had already published information about 2 large suitcases with human remains found on the popular coastal trail. From the beginning, there were difficulties in establishing the identities of the deceased, partly because some body parts were missing. The medical examination showed that the victims died from gunshot wounds, after which they were dismembered and placed in suitcases. The whereabouts of the remaining fragments remained unknown. The deceased were a couple, a man and a woman. Detectives began checking all missing persons reports received over the previous few weeks but found no matches. Since both victims were adults, they could have come from a distant location, which further complicated the identification process. It was discovered that around 7:40 a.m. on the same day the youth opened the suitcase, another male individual contacted the police reporting suspicious suitcases on the rocky terrain but didn't dare examine them. Several patrol units were sent to check, but they couldn't find the mentioned suitcases. Deciding it was a false call, they returned to dealing with the civil disturbances. The county medical examiner managed to identify the victims through fingerprint data. The woman was identified as Jessica Lewis, who was 35 years old at the time of death. The man was Austin Wenner, 8 years younger than her. Both lived in Burien, Washington, a suburb of Seattle. The examination revealed signs of physical violence. Apparently, the couple endured brutal torture before death. The woman suffered multiple gunshot wounds, while the man received one fatal shot to the torso. On June 22, detectives received initial testimonies from the victims' acquaintances, which allowed them to better understand their personalities. 27-year-old Austin and his older partner Jessica had been in a romantic relationship for 8 years. The young man was described as a friendly and sociable person who loved nature, country music, and camping. He cared deeply for Jessica, though he hadn't achieved financial success. The woman had children from previous relationships who lived with her parents. Friends remembered Jessica with warmth. She demonstrated her compassionate nature during her work at a facility for elderly people. During the autopsy, several unusual details were recorded. Plant material was found in Jessica's oral cavity. Feather fragments were found on both victims' remains, which were collected for analysis. It was determined that the down belonged to domestic poultry, chickens. While the medical examiner was conducting the investigation, another report came to the police department. Near the location where the suitcases with Austin and Jessica's remains were found, additional suitcases were discovered that potentially contained human remains. After examining these finds, the medical examiner confirmed that the found parts also belonged to the murdered victims. Notably, the additional suitcases also contained feathers identical to those found in the first suitcases. By June 26, the medical examination was completed. The expert confirmed the victims' identities and issued an official conclusion, classifying the case as murder. Law enforcement then intended to contact the relatives of the deceased, so on June 29 they contacted Austin Wenner's mother and cousin. It was revealed that the couple had lived in southwestern Burien since 2019. They rented housing from a man whom relatives knew as Mike. The last time the mother and brother saw Austin and Jessica was in early June 2020, when the couple visited them and mentioned plans to do yard work for a neighbor. The lovers were experiencing financial difficulties and were making ends meet with temporary jobs. During this visit, the couple told relatives about an attack by a group of people of Samoan descent. Unknown assailants had broken into the home they rented from Mike. The attackers used physical violence, demanding repayment of money the couple allegedly owed them. Austin's cousin told law enforcement officers that he didn't know the exact circumstances of these events, but he suspected the couple's possible involvement in certain illegal financial operations. Most likely, it involved credit card fraud, with the amount being approximately $1,000. After this conversation, Austin's mother accompanied the detectives to the residence where the deceased couple had lived. Additionally, the woman provided the landlord's contact number. After checking the person through official information systems, they established that the owner's name was Michael Dudley. At the time of the tragic events, this man was 62 years old. Detectives arrived at his residence to conduct an inspection. However, the man denied law enforcement access to the private property for examination. Austin and Jessica had planned to meet with the young man's father before the tragic events. This information could have clarified some circumstances. During a phone conversation, the father confirmed meeting with his son and his partner in early June. According to him, there was an arrangement for another meeting approximately a week later, but neither his son nor Jessica showed up. Detectives learned that both victims had mobile devices with them. However, Austin's phone couldn't receive incoming calls. All friends and relatives of the young man contacted him through his partner's phone. According to the deceased's father's testimony, he tried to call Jessica every day after their last meeting. The girl never answered the calls. The absence of return calls from Jessica was surprising. Eventually, the man became concerned about the couple's condition, so he personally visited their residence to establish contact. These attempts also proved futile. no one responded to knocks at the door. During his next visit, Austin's father met Michael Dudley. The property owner presented his own version of the situation. According to his account, the young couple hastily left the residence, abandoning most of their personal belongings, due to Austin's conflict with people of Samoan descent. He repeatedly mentioned the demand for money and physical assault. According to him, the couple was forced to go into hiding. He didn't know their whereabouts. The deceased's father accepted this story as true, as he had previously heard mentions of certain fraudulent operations. However, while leaving the house, his attention was drawn to clothing in the garbage container that resembled his son's belongings, which raised suspicions. However, he didn't give it proper attention at the time. On June 30, 2020, detectives met with Jessica's father. According to his testimony, the last time he saw his daughter and her partner was at a shopping center. The man noted that the couple was traveling in Austin's favorite pickup truck, the same vehicle they used to visit his father. The reason for that meeting was financial assistance, as Austin and Jessica were going through a difficult economic period. Quarantine restrictions due to the coronavirus pandemic had deprived them of their regular sources of income, causing them to have problems even with food security. The couple hoped for a quick end to this situation. It turned out that the deceased woman's father was the last family member to communicate with the couple while they were alive. This information helped reconstruct the sequence of events, but there was insufficient data for a complete picture, so a request was submitted for a court order to access Jessica's phone records. Analysis showed that her phone stopped functioning on June 9, 2020, at 7:08 p.m. This could mean the battery died or the device was intentionally turned off, but it could also indicate the time of the couple's death. An important detail was that the last two calls on June 9 were made to Michael Dudley's phone number. The first call was recorded at 7:01 p.m., the second at 7:08 p.m., immediately before the phone stopped working. The device's location at that moment was approximately 1,000 meters from the rented residence. While gathering facts to reconstruct events, Dr. Katie Taylor contacted the police department. She was an employee of the county medical facility conducting research on the bodies of the deceased. According to her professional assessment, the murder occurred in the evening hours, most likely in an enclosed space or room. The bodies were quickly dismembered and placed in suitcases. The basis for such conclusions was the minimal presence of insects on the remains. In the case of murder in an open area, a significant number of insects would have appeared on the bodies within the first hours after death. Additionally, the expert suggested the participation of several people in the murder. This assumption was based on the chaotic nature of the dismemberment, performed by different methods, probably using various cutting tools. By this time, a significant number of witnesses who had known Jessica and Austin for a long time had contacted law enforcement. These individuals had repeatedly heard the couple's complaints about deteriorating living conditions with Michael Dudley after the pandemic began. The landlord's characteristics were negative, and people shared observations about his unusual behavior. Several people who had contact with the deceased shortly before the tragedy testified to their panicked emotional state. The couple repeatedly told the story of an attack by a group of people of Samoan descent directly in their rented home. Jessica and Austin felt threatened in this house and suspected Mike's possible involvement in these events. A friend of the deceased young man shared information about a threatening gift his friend received shortly before his death. After a conflict with a person of Samoan descent, the next day Austin found bullets with his name engraved on them in the mailbox. Information about this threat was known to a wide circle of the victim's acquaintances. After the property owner's name was announced at an official press conference, the number of people willing to testify increased significantly. Numerous individuals acquainted with Michael expressed a desire to tell law enforcement about their experience interacting with him. Among them was a former neighbor who had lived nearby for several years and then moved away. He regularly visited relatives who continued to live across from Dudley's house. Hearing Michael Dudley's name in the news in the context of the crime, the man decided to contact the police. During his testimony, he recalled a June visit to his family when they anxiously reported hearing gunshots coming from the direction of the neighboring house. He also knew that Michael kept chickens. Two other witnesses first met the main suspect in March 2020. A woman who had housing problems was offered by the homeowner to rent a room that was about to become available. Dudley personally helped transport her belongings with his own vehicle. The moving day was scheduled for June 9, and he arrived in his own car in the evening. The witness noticed the owner's damaged glasses and several recent scratches on his face that resembled fingernail marks. When describing these injuries, she emphasized their similarity to defensive wounds inflicted during physical contact with another person. Immediately after moving in, the witness decided to examine the premises. In one room, she found a significant amount of clothing items, which the owner promised to remove. It seemed that the landlord was trying to get rid of these things, which was puzzling since they might be needed by their owners. Next, she examined the adjacent room where, according to Michael, the previous tenants had lived, and where she was to move after renovations. There was an even larger pile of things in the center of the room. Looking more closely, it seemed to the woman that a bloody human hand was sticking out from under the pile. Fear gripped the woman when she abruptly closed the door and shared what she had seen with Michael. Trying to hide her own fear, she presented it all as a joke. The man responded with laughter and decided not to comment. Less than an hour passed before Michael asked her to leave the house for a while. He needed to do some cleaning. He didn't explain his intentions in detail, but the woman suspected a connection with the found suitcases. The landlord gave the witness the keys to his vehicle. As she was leaving the house, she noticed that the basement was lined with large fragments of black plastic sheeting. At Michael's insistence, she refrained from visiting the house for several days, using the provided car. After returning, the woman brought up the topic of the previous tenants. Michael confirmed their names, Austin and Jessica, adding that this couple had rented the room for a long period, which the new tenant would now occupy. The landlord characterized the former tenants as extremely unpleasant personalities. In his opinion, they stole his property and systematically evaded rent payments. They repeatedly locked him inside the house. These actions forced him to insist on their eviction. The strangeness of the situation prompted the woman to examine the rented premises in detail. During the conversation with law enforcement, they were most interested in the presence of weapons in Michael's residence. The witness reported finding shell casings and ammunition on the washing machine in the basement on June 9. Additionally, while examining the room Michael had provided, she discovered bullet damage to the nightstand and a mark on the bed frame. To confirm her testimony, the woman provided photographs of the furniture with the indicated damage. Later, another witness connected to Michael's residence appeared. She used one of the rooms the man rented out as storage for personal belongings. The woman testified to visiting the house during the period when Austin and Jessica lived there. According to her, the couple made a positive impression and were pleasant to talk to. However, in early June, arriving at the house intending to socialize, she couldn't find them. Instead, in the pickup truck belonging to Michael Dudley, she noticed garbage bags with an extremely repulsive smell. The witness emphasized the unprecedented nature of this stench in her life experience. That same day, Michael made an unusual request, to deliver the black pickup to Portland and leave it there. He later canceled this assignment. It later became known that the vehicle actually belonged to Austin. The witness also knew about the conflict with representatives of the Samoan community. In her opinion, the cause was Michael's request for Austin to steal a vehicle from several Samoans and deliver it to his house. Complications arose after the young man completed this assignment. The woman assumed that Michael viewed this unusual favor as compensation for part of the rent payments that the tenants couldn't make due to employment difficulties. The collected information allowed detectives to obtain a warrant to search Michael Dudley's residence. The warrant was issued on August 19, 2020, and law enforcement immediately went to the specified address. Examination of the room rented by Austin and Jessica revealed bullet traces, spent shell casings, and suspicious dried stains resembling blood. Forensic experts concluded that shortly before their arrival, the room had been thoroughly cleaned and repainted. The owner claimed to have done renovation work before new tenants moved in, explaining this by the previous tenant's negligent attitude toward the premises, which led to its dilapidated condition. To verify witness testimonies, law enforcement interviewed residents across the street. An elderly couple confirmed that on June 9 they heard gunshots coming from the direction of Michael's house. They even reported the incident to law enforcement. The woman told about screams from the house where someone was pleading, "Don't, just let us go." In her opinion, it was Austin's voice, which frightened her. It was established that at 7:15 p.m. on June 9, a call from the neighbors came to the 911 emergency service. Patrol officers arrived for a standard check but soon left the scene due to no one answering the door. A visual inspection of the property revealed no suspicious signs. On September 8, 2020, Michael Dudley was arrested on suspicion of committing double murder. Upon hearing the charges, he stated he had no understanding of the matter. The suspect confirmed that Austin and Jessica rented premises from him, claiming their departure was related to COVID quarantine restrictions, not the couple's bad habits or financial difficulties. The standard monthly rent was $500, which they couldn't regularly pay. This led to constant disputes, but the main suspect insisted he simply evicted both of them. A warrant to search Michael's car revealed a 9mm pistol in the glove compartment. Subsequent ballistic examination established that this weapon was used to kill Austin and Jessica. He couldn't provide an explanation for this fact. When asked about the blood found in the bedroom, he dismissed it. Michael suggested that Jessica might have accidentally cut herself, so he thought it could be her blood. Regarding the bullet holes in the room's furniture, after a brief pause, he explained them as an old accidental discharge from his pistol. According to him, this happened during a period when there were no tenants at all. Detectives believed all the explanations were false, but Michael continued to claim that the marks were left from these accidental shots. On August 24, 2020, Michael Dudley was charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder and held in the county jail. The judge set bail at $5 million, considering the main suspect extremely dangerous to society. The man didn't have such funds, so he remained behind bars. As the investigation continued, increasingly disturbing information about Michael emerged. His former partner, with whom he had an on-and-off relationship from 2002 to 2016, contacted the media after learning about the case with the tenants found in suitcases. She expressed surprise at this level of dangerousness from the man. At the same time, the woman herself had repeatedly been a victim of his aggression. Regular beatings became the reason for the breakup. She made the final decision to stop communicating with him when Michael beat her so severely that she hit her head on the floor and suffered a traumatic brain injury. The incident resulted in an arrest and assault charge, but he received only probation. Even more disturbing facts later emerged, accusations of raping his biological daughter for nearly a decade. In 2018, a restraining order was issued on this basis. According to the daughter, from age 9 to 18, she periodically became the object of his attacks. Her father would drug her with prohibited substances and sexually assault her. The girl regularly ran away from home due to the lack of safety. She knew her father owned firearms. He repeatedly threatened to use them if his daughter told anyone about his actions. Notably, Michael Dudley's attorney later challenged the restraining order. The defender argued that the complaints against the man didn't meet the definitions in the statutory articles on. Instead, he classified the situation as domestic violence. Skilled defense allowed Michael to avoid severe punishment, although his ex-wife and daughter were convinced he posed a serious danger to society. Michael Dudley's cousins also believed he was very cruel and capable of crime, including murder. His aunt, who lived nearby, told how he once damaged Jessica and Austin's car to prevent them from moving out. The aunt knew many of Michael's strange and cruel habits, even calling him insane during police questioning. The woman said that Jessica and Austin repeatedly tried to leave this house, but the landlord deliberately damaged their car so the tenants couldn't leave his home. It was also known that Michael periodically installed trackers on other people's cars and stalked people. He would find new tenants, provoke conflicts with them, and demand that people leave. But at the same time, he wouldn't let them do so, often locking them in their own home. The aunt also witnessed Michael beating his dog to death after it killed one of his chickens. This incident occurred during the period when Austin and Jessica lived with him. The man threw the dog's body near the door of the room the couple rented. Everyone believed he was trying to intimidate them this way. On March 3, 2021, a bail hearing was held. The lawyer tried to reduce the amount to $500,000. The judge denied the motion. Trial hearings in the double murder case began only at the end of 2022. On December 8, 65-year-old Michael Dudley was found guilty on all charges. On March 10, 2023, the sentence was announced. The criminal was sentenced to 46 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Given the criminal's age, this effectively means a life sentence. According to the prosecution, the double murder occurred on the evening of June 9, 2020, when the couple's mobile phones were turned off. The crime resulted from a conflict caused by Austin and Jessica's inability to pay rent. However, many questions remain unresolved, particularly regarding the Samoans who attacked Austin and Jessica. Even the medical examiner confirmed that the dismemberment of the bodies required the participation of several people. Despite this, no further investigations or arrests were conducted after Michael Dudley's conviction. Detectives maintain the version of the crime being committed by a single person. Note, the last date in the original text likely contains an error, as all events occurred in 2020 and later, with the verdict announced in March 2023. Please write your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. For those who are new here, subscribing is the best way to stay updated on future content. Also give a like please. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Thank you for your support during this difficult time. Until next time, friends.